Hello, welcome to our continuing series on creating a brigantine and eventually a bark. So if you remember from the last video, we talked about how you can take the existing brig's mainmast and carve them up a little bit to make a brigantine. Today we're going to go over how to scratch build your own mast. Now, I'm surprised I hadn't done this already because one of the ships that I've used in some of my videos has scratch built masts. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, so here's my Diana. It's a typical Warlord Games mast. Nothing special about it. What I did, though, what I stumbled upon is a really beautiful, what I thought was beautiful, 3D printed hull that I wanted to have on one of my ships. Problem is that the masts were horrible, and so I didn't have anything. I couldn't really do anything with it. This was supposed to be a sloop, very small sloop, the Swan, and I went ahead and decided I'm going to go ahead and scratch build some masts. And you can take a look at the masts themselves, and let's compare them side by side. They really don't look much different or much worse. I think actually they work out pretty well, and they're made just like the Warlord mast in the sense of you have the main mast, the main spar segments of each mast being spliced together by the fighting top that they're on. So if we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at today how to actually scratch build these so that you can build a Brigantine or a bark model later, which we'll cover in a future video. So this technique can be used to build any mast. Simply create the proper fighting platforms and yardarms that you need. But today we're going to focus on building the Brigantine's foremast. Or sorry, not foremast, the mainmast. Alright, so there's the regular brig. Now if you look over here, there is the Brigantine rig that we just finished. I went ahead and created a version before, just beforehand, so that you can see what it looks like. This is the Brigantine, regular Brigantine rig, and you can see the difference in that last mast. How the gaff boom here, the gaff boom is much lower. You got a fore-and-aft sail here, so that'll be a nice distinctive look on your entire brig. Okay, there is. Let me go ahead. I'll remove this because this is not a finished model. I got more work to do. And let's take a look at the other version. Okay, so there is the schooner brig or hermaphrodite brig mast. No yardarms will be on there. And in fact, there will be a sail up top in this V area as well. Compare that to the regular brig. It's going to be a nice distinctive model. I can't wait to finish it. So we'll cover how to rig these in a future video. And same with adding the sails. Okay, to make your own masts, you really don't need that much. You will need, for these smaller ships, the Brigantine, for example, you'll only need 2 different size strip styrenes, rods, and your fighting tops will be made out of 20 thousandths sheet styrene. I guess that's 0.5 mil if you were using metric. Now, if you're going with a larger ship, 3-masted ship, for example, the bark, like a merchant ship, then you'll have a 3rd rod that you're going to need, and that will most likely be the 0.080 inch rod as well. Oh, sorry, not 0.08, 0.093. Now you might need to actually bump that up to actually get a tube. So, for example, this evergreen styrene 3/32 inch or 0.093 diameter tube would be your best approach for that, and that will get you the lowest mast size. Okay, so anyway, we're going to focus on the Brigantine today, and we'll make a single Brigantine mast with 2 parts, the lower and upper spar. And in this particular case, we're going to I'll show you how to make the yardarms, which you can add, because I do want to put yardarms on my particular brig. Okay, all right, and I'll show you how to cut the fighting tops out of the styrene. Okay, so now we're ready to cut the spars. First of all, you got the larger diameter rod which is a .080, and then the next size smaller than that is your 3/64, so it's .4047 inches. So, if that were in millimeters, it's going to be your 080 rod is going to be 2 millimeters, and your smaller rod is going to be 1.2 millimeters. All right, so you can use the existing brig mainmast as a guide, because this will tell you how big each piece needs to be. So we're going to start by cutting, including the base, because you want to make this is going to go into the model itself, okay? And then you're going to cut it right where it indicates the top. Now remember, the top is not at the bottom of this platform, it's actually above right here. So that's where you're going to cut to. So we're going to cut to right about here. Boom. It's that simple, one piece. Now, this one, you got 2 steps, because you'll notice it's tapered at the top. Okay, so we're going to start from the bottom to the top. We're going to cut that. All right, and now we're going to go on to the next step. For this step, you're going to need a power drill. Okay. For this, you're going to take the smaller of the two pieces, your upper piece, your .047 piece. You're going to put that in the bit, in the drill, gently. Okay, and you're not going to want to tighten this thing down much. You just want it, loose so it doesn't fall out on its own. Now, what you're going to do, and pardon the noise, is you're actually going to be using your power drill to basically sand and shape the end of that yard arm, or sorry, the mainmast. You'll do the same thing with the yard arms, and I'll show you those in a second. So you just slowly start it going, and you just hold the sandpaper next to it. Don't put too much pressure, because you don't want to weaken and break the styrene. Do you see how it's slowly taking shape? This, until you get the hang of it, it may take a little bit of practice. And there you go. Now you do the same exact thing with the yard arms. Just pull it out and swap it around the same way, using the same approach. And you can get that as thin or long a taper as you want. Since this is a mainmast, I want to have it slightly tapered. Looking at the top, I still see it's pretty flat. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back in and do some more. But you guys won't have to watch me or listen to this. Okay, now that we've got our 2 pieces, one tapered, one not. Now, the 080 inch rod fits directly into the brig's hole, so it's mast mounting hole, so it's perfect size for that. Now we're going to need to splice those 2 pieces together, and the way we're going to do that is simply, I prefer tester's glue because you're going to be welding it, and I'll show you exactly how that goes. Okay, so again, using our mast, our brig main mast as a template, we can lay them side by side, so we get the full length represented. Then we can adjust this ever so slightly so that we've got the same length. Okay. All right. Now, once they're there, do not touch it. But you can use the, make sure you're on something that you don't mind getting the glue on, something that's like glass or something that won't be affected by it, and you'll just touch the joint of the two like that, and you'll just leave that be. Let that glue. Now this is not going to hold it together forever. We'll have another step to follow. So let this dry. You may need to nurse it a couple times just to make sure you get a good weld, because this is literally just the two round rods. The point of contact is very, very small, and you're simply welding that for a moment. Okay, while that mast is curing, we can go on to the next step, which is going to be using the .020 styrene, sheet styrene, to make the platform that joins two together. Now, I made a slight mistake. Dimensions, if you didn't catch it in the actual the text I showed on the screen, I'll mention it now. The two rod sizes, the larger rod is not .080. That's the size you'll use when you use a larger ship. The size rod of the center the lower segment was .062 or 1.6 millimeters. So those are the sizes you're going to use. All right, anyway, so let's go on to here. Now, the easiest thing to do, it's best to do this before you cut. So what you're going to want to do is mark out a very small fighting platform. And so you just basically kind of guesstimate based on the size of the width of this. You just lay it up against and cut it wide enough so that this will fit in. There'll still be material on both sides, and cut it long enough or score it long enough so that it's easy to tell. And then you do the same thing here. All right. Now, keep that on. Do not cut that out, because you're going to use the rest of this to hold while you drill some holes here. Because what you need to do is drill holes to fit the mast in, so that this will slip over the two and become essentially a binder to hold those two pieces together. So let's go ahead and show that. Okay, so to drill the two holes, you're going to need a number 51 drill bit. That's roughly .062 inches across, and this is the number 56, which is .047, which is your smaller. So you're going to actually use both of these, and we're going to start with the smaller one. Okay, holding it, you're going to try to find not this exact center, but just off of the center. You're going to put that's one end of it. You're going to start your drill bit very slowly to make sure you don't walk. A lot of times these will want to walk. And if you want, you can actually use your X-Acto blade, the very tip, to put a small mark. And just by twisting it, you'll put a little dot there. And that will help give the drill bit something to bite into. So we'll just put that down here. And just start drilling. Once you start in, I don't want to drill on this table, so I'm going to pick this up and continue. Boom, right through. It doesn't take much at all. Okay, and now you're going to take the same approach with the larger drill bit. May need to swap collets here. Okay, yep, I had to swap collets. You'll do exactly the same thing. Now, in this case, you want them to pair up right next to each other, so you're going to want to find the center right below, right about here, so that when you're done drilling the two holes, they will be touching or close to it. And then again, slowly start them. And once you get it going, there it goes, actually punched right through real quick. Okay. Okay, so there you've got a small hole. It looks like it drifted slightly, so I'm going to go ahead and carve out this segment here just to make it even. And now we're going to carefully thread our mast through to try to make it mesh up. Now it looks like it's a little bit too, even though the number 56 drill bit is exactly the same size as this styrene, there's enough of a difference where it's a little bit too tight, and you do not want to risk damaging it. So I'm going to go ahead and just open it up by carving with the X-Acto blade a bit. There we go. And looks like we need to go a little further down this way. Expanding it just ever so slightly. Okay. Until we can get both rods through. There we go. Bingo. Just like that. Okay. And now, there we go. Get it set. Okay. And now at this point, we can cut strip styrene, the sheet styrene. And I find the best way to do that is with a pair of scissors. Seriously. So we'll go ahead where we scored. Where we scored. Wow, it's not okay. And if it gets really persnickety, you go back to the blade and carve that, because you do not want to rip this. It's a lot more fragile now. Okay, there we go. And again, and slip it back over. There we go. Now once it's mounted like that, now you go back to your, well, again, I prefer testers, but you can use super glue here. And you'll hit the whole thing. Now it's basically being spliced together. So you just liberally apply it, top and bottom, so that it really makes a nice solid joint. Okay. And now with this, you have your mast, and you can use the two booms, gaff booms that are in the kit. You don't need to make your own for that, and you can just glue them on to the position you want, and you're good to go forward. So that is how you make a mast. And again, you could do the same thing with a slightly larger mast section here and put another splice here, fighting top in. In that case, you'll have two fighting tops. I'll show you how there are two different sheet styrene pieces. I'll show you that in a second here. Okay, so to make this a little bit clearer, you see, all right. So we've got a large, medium, and small mast segment. Now notice here you have the two segments, whereas in the top one, in ours we only did one board to connect the two. Here you'll go ahead and do two of them, one lower and one higher. Now again, if you take a look at the regular Warlord kit, you'll see this platform is much larger, and so you want to measure it to make it large enough to be a fighting top. And then here you'll make this one a little bit longer in front than it normally would be. So it's not just binding the two together like we did in ours, but it actually extends further forward. So again, you can cut those pieces to any size you need. Now these, I used 20,000 sheet styrene on that. This I believe is 40,000 sheet styrene. Let me double check here. Compare the two. Yes. So the larger masts, you might want to go with a slightly thicker cardstock. And I went ahead with the smaller one for this small Brigantine we're working on. Okay. All right, so that's how you go about making your own mast. And I showed you how to build the main mast segments and how you splice them together using cardstock or sheet styrene. Okay. And with that, you can make any configuration of mast you want, including masts that are 4 sails high, like some of the old ships used to be. All right, so hopefully that was useful. Give you some ideas, hopefully give you some confidence to try something a little bit different and get you into kind of customizing your Navy to be a little different than what everybody else has. All right, with that, please thank you, share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.